You're walking across a parking lot with a few friends, car keys jingling, and before anyone's hand even touches a door handle, somebody calls it shotgun. Just like that, the front seat is theirs. And nobody argues. That's the strange part. There's no rule book, no one ever sat you down and taught you the system, but every single person in that parking lot understands instantly what just happened and accepts it as binding law. But have you ever wondered, why shotgun? There's no shotgun anywhere. Why does shouting one random word win you a seat in a Honda? If you've ever wondered how a weapon you're not carrying decided where you get to sit, you're about to uncover a little piece of history hiding inside everyday life, and it goes much deeper and much stranger than a kid's game in a driveway. To understand why we yell it, we have to leave the parking lot entirely and go back to a time when the front seat wasn't the good seat, it was the dangerous one. Picture the American frontier in the 1800s. For the better part of 2 centuries, the way you crossed long stretches of this country was by stagecoach, a wooden carriage pulled by horses, rattling down roads that were barely roads at all. Out in the sparsely settled West, that journey came with real risk. Few towns, long empty stretches, and the genuine possibility of being robbed somewhere between one outpost and the next. So the companies running these coaches did something practical. When a coach was carrying something worth stealing, they put an armed man up front, sitting right beside the driver, watching the ridgelines. He was called a shotgun messenger. Messenger being the old word for the express agent responsible for the valuables on board. His weapon was usually a coach gun, a short, stubby, double-barreled shotgun that scattered its shot wide, which made it easy to hit a moving target at close range from a bouncing bench. That seat beside the driver wasn't a prize, it was a post. It was a job that came with a loaded gun and the expectation you might have to use it. And here's a detail almost nobody pictures correctly. Most of the time, that seat was empty of any guard at all. The shotgun messenger only rode when there was treasure aboard, a payroll, a strongbox, silver bullion. A regular coach full of passengers heading to the next town usually had no armed man up front whatsoever. So the shotgun seat wasn't a fixture, it was a security detail that showed up only when the cargo earned it. Then the world moved on. The Transcontinental Railroad arrived in 1869, and over the following decades, the long-haul stagecoach quietly died. By the early 1900s, the automobile had finished the job. The coaches rolled into history, the messengers hung up their coach guns, and that armed seat beside the driver simply ceased to exist, which makes what happened next genuinely surprising. You'd assume a phrase this vivid, this perfectly Western, came straight from the mouths of the men who actually did the job, dusty drivers and guards in the 1880s calling out "riding shotgun" as they climbed aboard. They never said it. Historians have gone looking, and here's the thing, there is no evidence, none, that anyone in the actual stagecoach era ever used the phrase "riding shotgun." The men who literally rode shotgun didn't call it that. The expression only surfaces in print in the early 1900s after the coaches were already vanishing, and one of its earliest appearances describes not a real holdup, but a stagecoach trotted out for a celebration, a reenactment of a world that was already gone. The phrase was born nostalgic. It was describing the Old West from the outside, looking back. So where did it actually catch fire? The same place a lot of our idea of the Old West caught fire. The movies, pulp Western novels picked the phrase up first, and then Hollywood ran with it. In the classic 1939 film Stagecoach, a character announces plainly that he's going to ride shotgun, and the audience watches him do exactly that. Westerns were the dominant entertainment of the era, and as they poured out of theaters and later off of television sets, they handed the whole country a phrase that felt ancient but was, in truth, freshly minted. Think about the scale of that. Tens of millions of people now say this word casually every day, and almost none of them have ever laid eyes on a real stagecoach. We didn't inherit this from cowboys, we inherited it from people playing cowboys on a screen. And that's how it finally reached your parking lot. In the 1950s, with westerns everywhere and cars in every driveway, people started using riding shotgun to mean simply sitting up front next to the driver. The danger was gone. The gun was gone, but the front seat kept the name. Then, sometime in the 1960s, the phrase did one last thing. It shrank. People stopped saying the whole expression and just barked the single word, shotgun, to claim the seat. The newest piece of this entire centuries-long story is the exact version a 10-year-old yells today, which raises the obvious question, is the Old West origin you've always heard just wrong? Not quite. It's half right, and that's what makes it lovely. The danger was real, the guards were real, the coach guns were real. What Hollywood invented wasn't the history, it was the words. We inherited the costume, but not the script. And here's the part most people want to know. Why did it collapse into one shouted syllable? Honestly, because that's what living language does when the original meaning fades. Nobody yelling shotgun needs to know about bullion or bandits. The word got shorter as the memory got dimmer until only the sound was left. That little word in the parking lot is a costume the Old West never actually wore, stitched on later by Hollywood and handed to you. So the next time someone calls shotgun and slides into the front seat, you'll know you just heard a tiny echo of a job that vanished a century ago. A watchman's post repeated by people who never knew there was anything to watch for. Thank you for watching. If you have ideas for our next video, drop them in the comments below. Call shotgun on the phrase you want explained, and whoever calls it first will be sure to feature it. Thanks for joining us for another piece of heirloom history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more of the everyday things you've been doing your whole life without knowing why.